Yes, you just clicked on a completely free cold email course. And even if you're a complete beginner and never send a single cold email in your life, this will be the only guide that you will need to build a fully automated cold email system. You see, I've personally used cold email to grow my software business to a 7-figure run rate. And now what I've done for you is document every single step to show you exactly how you did it so you can just copy it. So in this full course, I'm going to walk you through step by step from the technical setup to finding leads, to buying inboxes and domains, and the psychology behind writing cold emails that actually get responses. And yes, most people charge $2,000 or more for a course like this or consulting. But I'm giving you the entire course completely for free right here on YouTube. The first thing that we want to do is define who we want to reach out to. So who is in our total addressable market, also called the TAM. With this, we basically want to identify how many potential customers are in the market that we are targeting. The mistake that most do when starting out with their cold email campaigns is that they directly start buying inboxes and domains. But the problem with this, if you don't even know how many people are in your total addressable market, you don't know how many inboxes and domains you need. And this might lead you to either overspending or underspending on them. So the first thing that we're going to focus on is the accounts, right? The accounts are basically the companies. And there are certain tools we can use to identify these accounts. There are tools like BuildWith, Crunchbase, Discolike, or Apollo. Starting with the first one, BuildWith, this is a tool that allows us to find, based on a website address of the company, which technology that company is using. So if we assume that the companies that we want to target should necessarily use BigCommerce, we can see that there are 40,000 live websites, which most likely also means that there are 40,000 companies behind it. So we can just click on BigCommerce and we can see that there are already some websites listed here. When we click on download lead list, you can either use these or you can also pay for getting the whole list of all the companies that are using BigCommerce. But even if you don't want to spend money and get the whole list, this already helps us to map out our total addressable market, because this means we have around 40,000 companies in our market if we only say that our market is companies using BigCommerce. The next tool, which is very efficient for finding companies, is called Discolike. And the good thing about Discolike is that it helps you to identify companies which are not on LinkedIn. Because the big issue is that most databases are primarily based on LinkedIn. So the only source that they source from mostly is LinkedIn. But what if, let's say, you target a market like construction? In this case, you wouldn't find them on LinkedIn most likely. So a tool like Discolike will allow you to find them quite easily. Or alternatively, you can also use a tool called Apollo, which is a database provider. And as you can see, they also have a free trial, so you can just get started for free and try it out yourself. For simplicity reasons, this is also the tool we are going to use. So we're just going to click here on companies, and then we will add our search criteria, which will allow us to see how many companies are in our market. So in this case, we're looking for US software as a service companies with up to 2,000 employees. And normally, of course, your search should be more refined and also more niche down, but this is just for demonstration purposes. So the only thing that we have to do is add the location here, also the employee ranges that we're interested in, and also the industry keyword, which is SaaS, which stands for software as a service. And as you can see here, we have around 13,200 companies that match our criteria, and this will allow us to later on also see how many inboxes and domains we need, because we now know the size of our TAM. And here it's important to differentiate between the TAM for the companies and the TAM for the leads. In our example, we are targeting the Chief Operating Officer, the COO, and most often there's only one COO at each of these companies. So we can say in our case that there are 13,200 companies and there are also 13,200 leads. However, if you're targeting sales managers now, most likely there is more than one sales manager for each company. So the TAM of your leads is most likely not the same as the TAM for your companies. But before we go more into detail on how to find the leads, we now need to see how we can export these companies, these 13,200 companies, from Apollo. And you have several options here. So the first one is buying a paid Apollo subscription, and this will then also allow you to find the leads for these companies. And the second option is using tools like the Boomerang. These will allow you to export leads from Apollo way more cost efficiently by just pasting in this link into the tool. Which option you choose, of course, depends on you, but let's say you've done that now, and now you have a nice list of all of these companies in a spreadsheet. And now again, you have several options to find these leads. So the first option we're going to look at is completely for free, and it's using Google search. Let's say we have changed our targeting and we don't want to find the Chief Operating Officer, but we rather want to focus on the VP of Sales. So we take an example company from our list. Let's take Miro. The only thing that you have to do now is go on Google and type in this search query. How this works is basically that we're looking for LinkedIn profiles. So we have to type in this site, linkedin.com/in, to make sure that every search result is also containing linkedin.com/in which means that this is a profile. We then are going to put the company name, which is Miro, so we want to have an exact match, so we need to put these signs here, and we also look for the job title VP of Sales or Vice President of Sales. So just to double check now if the results we're looking for is correct, so we're going to click here on this person, and we will check if this is the right one. And as we can see here, this is the person that we're looking for, is the Vice President of Sales working at Miro. And of course, if you have 13,000 companies or even more, you can't do this manually for each company and for each person. This is why I recommend you to do this at scale using a tool called Zerpa, which is quite easy to set up. So as you can see, you have 2,000 free queries. You don't need a credit card, so you can just create an account for free to play around with it. And you will see that if you paste in the same exact search query that I just showed you, you will also get the exact same output in a structured way. And while it would add too much time to this video, you can just ask ChatGPT how to do it or how to, for example, connect it to Google Sheet, because it will be quite easy for you to set up and you will save a lot of time. If you say now for some reason this is an option you do not like or do not want to go with, there are also paid options, for example, using Apollo now also for the people, or using tools like ZoomInfo, LeadIQ, or Lucia. However, you should also be aware that most of these tools don't have a free trial, and they most often also require you to commit to a yearly plan with an upfront investment, which is very high. A typical workflow in Apollo would be is that you select all of these companies, add them to a list, and then based on this list, find the people, right? So you would then add the list here, and then you would add the job titles as well as the locations and all of this, which we just discussed here in the people tab. After you've done that, you can just export all of these people from Apollo, and you will have a nice spreadsheet with all of these people in it. If you say now, I don't believe in this TEM route, I want to start directly finding leads without finding companies before, there is also an option for you. One of these options which is working quite well is using social engagement on a specific topic and see what type of people and which specific people are engaging with it. A tool which is working very well for that is called Phantom Buster, because it allows us to easily export likes on a specific LinkedIn post. So for that, we're going to use the LinkedIn post likers export, and we click here on use now. You can also try Phantom Buster completely for free, and then this will allow us to, after we've connected our LinkedIn account, put in here a LinkedIn post and then basically see how many people reacted to it and which specific people did. Now we go on LinkedIn and we're looking for the keyword employee engagement. So we're looking for an exact match. So we are going to put these here before and after the keyword, and then we will see that there are specific posts about this topic. Now we can see that quite recently, so 2 days ago, Josh Burson, who is heavily promoted and also famous influencer in the HR space, posted something which contains this exact keyword, namely employee engagement. We can also see that there was a lot of engagement, and we now want to see the people that engaged with it, because we now assume that the people that engaged with this post are also in a way interesting to our software. Those people could potentially be our next customers. And while you, of course, shouldn't assume that all of these people could potentially be interesting, you can also qualify these people, but this is always a good starting point to see who is in the market and who is not, based on very high intent. The only thing that we have to do now is click here on the 3 dots and then click here on copy link to post. We're now going back to Phantom Buster, and we're going to paste in the URL of the post that we just copied out, and we're going to click on save again, and you also have to fill out these, and then we will have a full list of potential new customers. Now, in some cases of the above, you already have emails for the leads that you want to reach out to, but it's super important to actually make sure that these emails are actually valid. Because if you send emails to too many inboxes that don't even exist, you most likely have domains that will get burned, which means that at some point they are completely unusable. And to verify single emails or also large bulk lists of emails, you can use tools like Million Verifier or Zero Bounce. So these are solid verifiers which are good enough for you to get started. So what I like to do here is use a tool called Better Contact, which basically aggregates all of the relevant email finders. So it's over 20 data providers, and they also make sure that the email is actually valid. And if the email is not valid, we also don't get charged. And to understand how it works, we can see here on the product page that if one tool didn't find the email, then the next tool is being requested. And only if also the verification layers, such as Zero Bounce, say that the email is actually valid, it also gets put back to us, and that's the only time that we get charged for it. Perfect. We now have a list of leads with verified email addresses, and we now have to set up the domains and the inboxes to be able to actually send cold emails to them. The first part of the setup is actually using a tool called Zapmail, because they allow us to buy verified domains and also verified inbox quite cheaply and with a very high quality. And the reason why we have to buy domains now, although you might already have one, is that you should never use your main domain for sending out cold emails. Because with cold emails, the risk always exists that for some reason you get flagged by either the algorithm or recipient, and the risk to your domain is just too high because it could get flagged and also blacklisted. So let's say our domain is amazon.com and we would never use it to send out an email, but we would rather buy a new domain called getamazon.com, for example. We are going to click here on resources and click on the calculator because we now need to see how many domains and how many inboxes we need to buy. And this is again where our TAM, so our total addressable market from before, comes into play. We had around 13,000 people in our TAM, and now let's say we want to do this whole campaign over 4 months because it's quite a small TAM, so we should always stretch it to at least 4 months. To do some quick maths, we have 4 months and we have 16 weeks, so basically this is 16 times 5 because we do not send emails on the weekend. So 16 times 5 means that we have 80 days where we actually send out cold emails. So we're now going to divide our TAM by the amount of days that we're going to send cold emails at, which is 13,200 divided by 80. So our target volume for our TAM is 165 emails per day. And we can also go with this recommendation of 20 emails per day. If you want to be more conservative, you can also choose 10 or 15. And then how many mailboxes do you want to have per domain? I always recommend 2 mailboxes per domain. In total now we need 9 mailboxes and 5 domains, which will allow us to send around 5,000 emails on a monthly basis. And now looking at the cost of this, we have an upfront investment of $65 per year. So you only need to pay these domains on a yearly basis. If you do not want them anymore after this year, you can just get rid of them and can stop paying. For the mailboxes, we need to pay around $30 a month. So Zapmail keeps these mailboxes up to date and also verified. So for our first month, because it also includes the domains, it's close to $100. And then after this, on a monthly basis, it's close to $30. Quickly going into Zapmail, it's very easy to set up. So the only thing that you have to do is click here on Buy Domains after you clicked on this button on the sidebar, and you will see that you can just search for domains, for example, llll.com. So this is, of course, a bad example, but this is just showing that you can basically buy every available domain out there. And the great thing about Zapmail is after you've bought the domain, you do not have to care about things like DNS, DKIM, or DMARC, because all of this will be properly configured by Zapmail. The reason why you need these things is because there are email authentication tools that prove that your emails are really from you and that they are not spam. And it's super important to have these set up, especially if you want to do cold emails at scale, because this will also protect your sender reputation and also improve the deliverability, which means the times that the email actually lands in the primary inbox of the person. After you've set up the domains, just click here on mailboxes. You can then buy the mailboxes. As we saw on the calculator, we need 9 mailboxes. I always recommend Google Workspace ones because they are just the best ones. They also have Microsoft, but in this case, I recommend Google Workspaces. After you've also bought the mailboxes, then you can click here on Add Mailboxes and then assign the mailboxes, because what you have to do now is you will have to assign the mailboxes to the domains that you have just purchased. And all of this is very quickly set up and it's quite easy. So the only thing that you have to do after this is you will have to send this to a warm-up tool. It's very important that you do not use these emails directly for cold email, because the rule of thumb is that these emails need to now warm up for around 2 to 3 weeks before using them for the first time for cold emailing. This is an automated process where different mailboxes communicate with each other by sending out emails to each other. So basically allowing to gradually build up a reputation over time. And for that, there are different tools that exist out there that will allow you to do this automatic email warm-up process. You can choose from a lot of different tools. There are tools like SmartLead, Instantly, Sales Handy, Salesforge, or also Reach Inbox, and a lot of different other ones. In our case, we're just going to use Instantly, so you will see that here for around $37 a month, you're able to send out 5,000 emails monthly and also have this unlimited email warm-up of as many accounts, so of as many inboxes as you want. The only thing that you have to do now is transfer these mailboxes from Zapmail to Instantly. So you can click here on Select, click on Export, and then you can export it to Instantly quite easily with one click. After a few minutes, you will be able to see the inbox here Instantly, and now you only have to click here on the flame, which means that the warm-up is being activated. And now you have to wait 2 to 3 weeks so that the process can work properly. Great, so while your inboxes are warming up, we now need to see how we can write emails that actually get replies. And to start off, what I always recommend is to have a 2-touch email sequence. So many people recommend you to have 4 touches, 5 touches, basically meaning that you send over 5 emails in a single campaign to one single prospect. But based on a lot of data, most replies come either after the first or the second message. And after the third and the fourth, the additional messages that come in are marginal. Looking now at the first email that you're sending out, you will have to answer why you and why now. And a very interesting concept by Josh Brown is the poke the bear question to start off your cold emails. So the thing is that most cold emails fail because they start with cheesy yes questions. So as you can see here, for example, if I could show you how to make more money, would you be interested? So these are questions where everyone would basically say yes, right? Because it's very obvious that everyone wants to make more money or that a solid life insurance plan is very important. But instead, you should ask poke the bear question. So basically ask a neutral question that makes them realize a risk that they didn't know about initially. So as a quick example, you shouldn't say, do you want to save on shipping? But you should say, how do you know you're not being overcharged for shipping, right? So instead of pitching, it's basically making the person curious in the first place. Another very important part of the first email is that you add quantitative social proof, because you shouldn't just say, we help company X with XY. You should say, we help company increase their sales, for example, by X% in X amount of time. So here's a quick example. This is the first email, and we will have here, is your team still making demand forecasts? All of this is basically the poke the bear question. And now we're also adding an additional question, and we also are adding the quantitative social proof. And the most important thing, which a lot of people are getting wrong, is that you should not ask for a sales meeting, but rather have a very soft CTA and also offer something for free in advance. In the second email copy then, I recommend to add missing points, also more context, and also a social proof expansion. Because here, for example, we added very summarized and brief case study, and we also again added or rather offered something for free in advance. In this case, a 2-minute video walkthrough. And one mindset, or rather thinking, which I think is very important these days, is that to be aware that every inbox is most likely flooded with a lot of different cold emails. This is why it's very effective to use pattern interrupts, for example, using an unexpected subject line, something humorous like pizza or so. In the second email, so in the follow-up email, you can also use something like an embedded video or a GIF, because this is just something which will help you to stand out most likely. And in general, there are a few things that you should look out for when writing a cold email. The first thing is that you should keep the email under 100 words, and you should also talk about relevant pain points. You shouldn't just send it to everyone, but only if you actually assume that you can add value to that prospect. Also in the subject line, you should not make it salesy, because this is the first thing that people see. So you shouldn't say something like, this is a sales proposal for XY, but rather keep it colleague to colleague style. Also use social proof, because people always want to have something that their competitors or other people also have used successfully, and you should also offer something for free in advance. Another thing is that you shouldn't make it look too formal, and the person should have the impression as if this came directly from one of their colleagues. On the other hand, there are also things which you need to avoid. For example, that you should avoid generic intros, such as I hope you're well. You should also do not make it about your company. So not always say our company is best, our company does this and that. You should really center it around the prospect and the prospect's company. You also shouldn't add links, attachments, or images in the first email, but you can try to do so in the second email, because if you do it in the first email, the likelihood that you will land spam is very high. You also should pay attention that this doesn't look too templated or generic. So you should always personalize, but also make sure to not over-personalize just for the sake of personalization. Great, now that we have our copy and also 2 to 3 weeks have passed, we will go back to our Instantly account, and we will be able to see here on the health score how healthy are our mailboxes, meaning if they have 100%, they're ready to be used for cold emails. To start our first campaign now, we have to go here on campaigns. We're going to click here on add new, and when we're going to call it my campaign 1, just to keep it simple, and then we will have to add the leads. And depending on where you got the leads from or how you've built the lead list based on the approaches that I've just showed you, you can just click here on add leads, and you can upload it via a CSV file. The next thing is copy pasting our subject lines and our emails into the campaign. So we're going to do that quickly. We're going to here copy out also the body, and then we're going to have the first email already written down. We now also copied out the second message, and we want to send out the next email if there was no reply after 3 days. I recommend you to format it a bit so that it's also readable. So we're going to do some white space. This is especially important on the mobile phone, so the person can also more easily skim through it and not have this one big bulge of text. This already looks way better, and another thing that we should add, but which you do not have to add, is something called spin tags. Spin tags is about using synonyms for certain words so that you do not send the same email over and over to different people. This will allow us to be not flagged as bulk spam by the algorithms of the email sending providers such as Google or Outlook. What we have to do to activate the spin tags, we need to use these signs and then type in random, all in capital letter, and then we're going to use this sign to show the first variation. So the first variation is actually helped. Then we also say assisted. And then you can use a lot of different other synonyms. And the more synonyms, usually the better. So after you've added the other synonyms, if you want, you can close the bracket again here. And then we will have the helped and the assisted used interchangeably. Always make sure to click on save, because we're now going to the next tab, which is the schedule one. As we said at the beginning, we only want to have the emails sent out Mondays to Fridays, so on working days. So from Saturday to Sunday, there should be no emails sent out. So the predefined settings work for us well. So we click here on save, then we're going to click here on options. And now we can say how many emails should be sent out on a daily. The first thing is that we're going to add our account. So basically the emails that we're going to use. So this of course depends on your TAM. As we discussed, we're also going to enable stop sending emails on reply, because as soon as a lead replies, we also want to communicate and to not keep him in the sequence. We're also going to disable open tracking, because it's a best practice. And while it's of course interesting to see if the person opened the email, it's always better to not do it, because it harms deliverability. And as we said at the beginning, we are going to send 165 emails a day. So this is something we're going to put here. And then after this, everything is ready to launch and also have the first campaign run up. While the campaign is running, you should always monitor it and also make sure that your expectations are set well. Because on average, for every 365 emails you send out, you only get one positive reply. And on the optimization side, you should always see which email is performing better. So on which email you get the reply, and if the second email is performing better, you can also put that one first. And if you really want to level up your game then and also maximize your results after your first initial campaigns, there are a few things that you can consider. The first thing is that you really spend some time into creating a great lead magnet, because this will allow you to increase your reply rates and also offer more value upfront to the user. Another important insight is that 40 to 60% of the emails are being read on mobile. So you should always make sure that the email you send is also optimized for mobile view. There are also additional tools you can use, such as Google Postmaster tools, which will allow you to monitor your domain health. You should also make sure that the bounce rate of your campaign is below 5%, because if it's above this, you have bad email quality and you should definitely revisit it and also requalify your list. So this is everything you need to run a successful cold email campaign. So you just need to take it and implement it into your workflow. But here's one thing I have to mention, because if you watch this, you most likely already considered to also reach out to these people on the phone and not only through cold email. And no, I'm not going to tell you to pick up the phone and start doing cold calls yourself right now. But I am going to tell you to click on the next video, where we'll show you how to build an autonomous AI agent that will do the cold calling for yourself step by step, just under 12 minutes. And before you say it can't be that good because it's AI, well, just head over there. You will see how good it really is and you will be amazed. See you in the next video.